everybody. Thanks for joining us. We're really excited to have this workshop today. I am Crystal Pascucci Clifford. I am the Executive Director of Intermusic SF. And I just want to say a little bit about our organization before we get started. Intermusic was established nearly 30 years ago. We provide support to independent musicians, small ensembles, presenters, and organizations, support organizations like ourselves. And we do this through three main programs: fiscal sponsorship, performance opportunities like SF Music Day, and through the musical grant program, which you'll hear a lot about today. Another part of our programming is free professional development workshops, which you are all aware of, that provide guidance on things like grant writing, which is what we'll cover in just a moment. I would like to introduce our host and presenter, David Blazevich, Executive Director of the Fleishhacker Foundation for the last 6 years. They fund arts and culture and social justice. Before that, he supported grant making at the Eureka Foundation for about 13 years, which also supports local arts groups. For 20 years, he's been reviewing grant proposals and so brings a wealth of knowledge to us. And before that, he was the head of the foundation relations at KQED, so quite a lot of experience. David came to this work through theater arts, and so for a while was also on the grant seeking side. So we're very honored to have him, and without further delay, David Blazevich.
Okay, ready? Good evening, everybody. Good evening to our Zoom folks as well. Thank you for the introduction, Crystal. So we're going to spend about the next 90 minutes together, and we're going to be working through a kind of step-by-step practical guide to grant writing, specifically for musicians and musical ensembles, with a focus on developing your project narrative, the meat of your proposal. What do you need money for? The overarching theme of tonight is that I want to see if we can get ourselves to think like a funder, to understand why they're asking the questions that they're asking so that you can respond strategically and you can present your artistic vision and your project description clearly and in a way that gives them the information that they need, so that they can say yes. So this is really intended to be an interactive workshop. We've got our speakers. At some point, I will cue you to read what's on the slides there. You should feel comfortable asking questions of me or of Crystal as we go on. We'll be asking questions of you. People in the Zoom, you can drop your questions in the chat. And then we'll stop periodically and I'll have Mark read them so we can respond to them. A few quick questions to kind of help us calibrate what we're going to delve into tonight. Let's talk about experience level. How many of you have never written a grant before? And on Zoom, if you could raise your hand or something. I don't know if we can see that.
Yeah, okay.
Never written a grant before. Written 1 or 2 grants. Written lots of grants. No, okay, but you've never had one funded. Okay, great, that's good to know. Also, this is going to help me gear toward the kinds of things we cover. Your applicant status. Now, if you don't know what I mean by that, you're going to say not sure at the end. So 1, how many are incorporated as a 501c3 nonprofit organization? 2, how many are fiscally sponsored projects? And by that, we also mean you're an Intermusic SF affiliate, which is also a fiscally sponsored project.
Will be.
Will be. Great. How about just individual artists? Who doesn't know what I'm talking about? We're going to get back to that.
There were a lot of responses for individual artists in the chat, but responses for the other 2 categories as well.
Okay, great. Good to know. And did people bring work in progress that they'd like to have peer reviewed tonight? We've got 1. Anybody else? 2, a little bit, if that's enough. How about on Zoom? Do we have people on Zoom that are interested in peer review? Because we can have you go into breakout rooms at the end. significant number of those. Should we save enough time with that?
I see one so far.
So this is our agenda for tonight. We're going to be moving through, we're going to start at the very beginning. Why do foundations exist? And what do they do? We're going to take it right back to the root. We're going to be followed by ideas for assessing the relative alignment between what they do and what you do or what you're planning to do. And we're going to look at some specific examples relative to musicians. Then we're going to move into some core grant writing principles. And then we're going to take a deep dive into the project narrative. As I said, that's the real part of your proposal. And then we'll move into peer review at the end. Here's what I'm hoping that we will achieve tonight. If we stick the landing, we will have a better understanding of these things. We want to start with how funders think. That is, how does their mission, what they're trying to do in the world to make it better, and their specific outcome objectives for their grant program shape their funding decisions. Then we're going to look at funder alignment. That is the specifics of 4 grant programs that we're going to look at tonight, for which your work may very well be eligible to apply. And we're going to look at how to think about the fit between what you do and what they want to do. And then we'll zoom into the writing work. Okay. I should also say this slide deck is going to be made available after this session so that you can refer back to it. There are more slides in here than we'll cover tonight. For example, I've got a slide or 2 on budget. I want to refer people to the really wonderful workshop that that Tsukio Kane did 2 weeks ago specifically on developing your budget. We're not going to go into that tonight, but it'll be some tips will be in here that you can refer back to the slide deck. Okay, so let's start right at the very beginning, because I think this is going to shift the way that you approach how you develop your narrative. And that's understanding why foundations exist at all and what their public benefit mandate is. Okay. Congress created a private foundation structure in which assets are held in a tax-exempt entity. These assets are invested and they generate annual returns. Just like if you have a 401k and it generates returns, et cetera, it's the same kind of thing. But because these assets were held out of the tax system, both the assets and the returns, the money they generate, have to be used for public benefit. I'm going to get back to what we mean by public benefit in a minute because it's very loose. The IRS requires that foundations distribute at least 5% of their assets each year. Some foundations, like the Fleishhacker Foundation, do a bit more than that, but 5% is the minimum. But that 5%, the thing to know about that is, even though a foundation might have millions of dollars in the bank, only 5% is available in any given year to cover both its operations and its grant making. That means its grant programs have a budget, just like everybody. They can't just give away all the money. Some of them have set out to do that, but it's kind of rare. They have an annual budget, which makes their grant programs have limited funds, which makes their grant programs competitive, which is why we're here tonight, to try to develop some strategies so that you can make your case clearly within that competitive environment and in a way that funders can really hear it and respond. The other thing to know is that every single grant that you apply for is mandated by law to serve a, quote, public benefit. But here's the catch. So foundations largely get to define what public benefit means. And they do so through their mission statements, that is, how they're going to try to make the world a better place, and then their grant programs. And their grant programs help them achieve that mission, that mission. Each of their grant programs has strategies, goals, and metrics for success that tie back to their mission. We're going to look at an example in a minute. But first, I want you to think for a minute about what this means for you and your project. Why are we talking about this? It means the work that you do provide the only mechanism through which private foundations can accomplish their mission. That is, the value of a foundation is not on its balance books. It's exclusively in the work that its grantees are doing in the community. That's the only way it can fulfill its public benefit mission. If it's sitting on millions of dollars, but it's not deploying those funds for the benefit of the community, it's not really doing anything. So I want to make a distinction here because there's a difference between a nonprofit organization like Inner Music SF, which runs its own programs, Music Day, the affiliates program, but it also raises funds and distributes those funds in the forms of grants. That's a different kinds of things. But for the private foundations, and we're going to be looking at several examples tonight, they don't actually deliver any programs or services directly. They invest in organizations and in artists who do that work. And it is only through those grant programs and the work that follows that they accomplish their aims. So why are we talking about this? What I'm hoping is that it begins to shift the way that you think about your work and the way that you position your proposals. When you're making a grant proposal, you are not asking a grant maker for a favor. You're proposing a partnership. You're offering to do the work that the funder genuinely cannot do without you, and without which they can't fulfill their legally mandated public benefit aims. So we're going to discuss what this looks like in practice, but I want to just pause for a minute to see if there are any questions about this overall structure and the way you're thinking about foundations and what they're doing in the world. Anything online?
Not yet.
Okay, great. So let's use the Fleishhacker Foundation as our example. Our mission is, we were founded in 1947, so it's been a while. And our mission is put forward by our founders to improve the quality of life in the San Francisco Bay Area. Now that's really quite broad. There's a lot of things you can do to improve the quality of life in the San Francisco Bay Area. And also, if you're going to have an impact on anything, you can't try to do everything. So given our limited resources and our annual budget, our board has really narrowed our focus on areas in which we believe that we can have a positive impact. And those two areas are arts and culture and social justice. One of our grant programs, our small arts grants programs, which is the most relevant to all of you tonight, aims to nurture local artistic innovation and talent at the grassroots level by offering unrestricted grants to smaller arts groups. And then within that, we have a specific program strategy. We invest in grantees that plan to produce and present new work by professional, by that I mean paid artists, during the proposed grant period. So when I review a proposal, I'm not asking, are these talented artists doing good work?
Oh, sorry, excuse me. If your phone is making that sound, can you mute your notifications for now? Sorry, thank you.
If not, are they talented musicians doing good work, but are we working toward the same goals? And that shift in thinking about this is important. So I want to see if we can read our first example. So knowing what we know of the Fleishhacker Foundation so far, about its mission to improve the quality of life in the San Francisco Bay Area and its small arts grant program to support organizations that produce and present new work by professional Bay Area artists, let's consider a scenario. I think we're going to need a microphone. Let's consider a scenario. And the question we're going to be discussing is it a good fit for this group to apply for OSHA support this year, knowing what you know of what its goals are? So, Yaakov, if you want to read for us.
The Bayfront Group is an Oakland-based chamber orchestra with an annual operating budget of $188,000 and a physical sponsorship through Intermusic SF's affiliates program. In 2024, the ensemble commissioned Oakland composer Laura Tully to write
Estuary,
a 35-minute work for chamber orchestra inspired by the ecology of San Francisco Bay. The world premiere in March 2025 received strong reviews in local and national press. Energized by that reception, the ensemble's primary artistic focus for 2026 to 2027 is a national touring production of Estuary, which will include 12 performances in 9 cities from Seattle to Miami, with residency components at each stop.
Right, so we have an arts group that's clearly doing great work. It got great reviews. it wrote the music in 2025, and during the proposed grant period, it's going to be on tour. Is it a good fit for Osher support this year? What do people think?
It sounds like it's narrowly outside of the parameters that the foundation has set, because it's not strictly new work, although it's pretty new, and it's not in the Bay Area because it's around the country.
So Ava's just responded that it might be narrowly outside of our guidelines because it's relatively new work, but it's not new work, and they're gonna spend the time outside the Bay Area. What do other people think?
Yeah, the location is, a problem. If it's going to be performances presented outside the Bay, it might not be a good fit.
If it's performances outside the Bay, it might not be a good fit. Great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and also it doesn't show how this initiative improves the life of people in San Francisco.
And there's another, it doesn't show how this initiative is going to improve the lives of people in San Francisco, improve the quality of life for people in San Francisco. Great, so how about if this was if they were gonna apply last year before they wrote this music and they were gonna perform it in the Bay Area? Does that change everything? So the time to apply for OSHA support for this group would have been 2024, and they developed in 2025. The end of the grant period, then go fly, do your national tour, but not this year, because I need to improve the quality of life in the San Francisco Bay Area. That's what my job is. I hope people in Miami have a quality of life, but that's not my job. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. What we've just done and thought about together is something we call funder alignment. As you delve deeper into learning about these different grant programs, you're always going to be asking the same kind of questions. And these are some questions that you might consider before you ever begin to put together your application for a specific funder. The first one is, am I eligible? Based on budget size, geography, organizational status. I have to tell you something, it breaks my heart that despite as clear guidelines as I can post, every single round, I get 5 or 6 proposals that are just clearly outside our guidelines. They're not located in the Bay Area. They're above our budget. There's something about it that's very clear that they just don't fit. And I've been trying to figure out why is that? Why can't I prevent this? Because it's such a waste of time. And I think that people think that there's a possibility that we're just going to make an exception, but I can't make an exception because out of fairness. If I make an exception for Zoe, well, why haven't I made an exception for Ayako? If I make an exception for Ayako, well, then why am I not making one for Abe? And suddenly I'm making exceptions for everybody, and the grant program is not fair, it's not effective, and it's not focused. So that's why exceptions are really problematic. Yes.
I have 2 questions. One of them is your point now. How can you kind of communicate either like to your team or to your director that like without saying that like, oh, assuming that the assumption is like an exception might be made, like how can like we kind of as a team communicate, be like, hey, like
She's gonna have.
I don't think that's gonna be a good fit because of these things, and that the idea of we should just try may not be valuable to our labor.
I post in my guidelines now an eligibility quiz that you have to answer, yes, this is true, yes, this is true. I live in these counties. I even feel all of these things. And the last one is, I understand that the Fleishhacker Foundation cannot make exceptions to any of the above. And people click it anyway, and then they continue on, even though the things that they just said above is not, and there's just no way around. It's a waste of time.
Mm.
It's a waste of time. And also, I was a grant writer for a long time. I also serve on nonprofit boards, and I have to do grant writing, and it's like, I know how much work it is, and it just breaks my heart. It really, really does. I hate it when it's just like, I can't even read past the first paragraph because it's not a fit.
Mm.
Also for questions, can we just pass you the mic so that those online can also hear the question clearly? Thank you.
Some of the other questions here are the type of support they're offering. Some groups offer project support like Intermusic SF's musical grants program. And then some offer general support. General support is usually it's unrestricted and it can be used for your artistic projects and your administrative cost over the course of a defined period. It's usually a year. But as we've seen, even those organizations like Fleishhacker that provide general support are looking at what your artistic programs are going to be during that grant program to see if they align with their overall aims. Question number 4 is a little bit new here. And we're talking about capacity. Funders aren't just asking whether or not your project sounds good. They want to know whether or not it's going to actually happen. We're going to talk about the topic of providing specificity in your proposal narrative in a minute. And then this last bullet point, actually Crystal brought this to my attention and it's a great idea. Oftentimes grant makers will put their past grantees on their website. Take a look at them. Do they fund stuff like I do? Is this a brand new thing for them? Look at what their past grantees are and see if you align with some of the work that they funded in the past. Should I stop for question? Anything online?
They've been dropping questions, so I think we're up to date.
Okay, great. So we got 4 funders here. You may be eligible for all 4 of them, possibly. Remember, this is going to be, if we go back to this, this is going to be available here after this. Intermusic SF's musical grant program is going to be the most accessible for the musicians in this room. Individuals are eligible to apply, yes. The small ensembles qualify. Grants are awarded for music-specific projects. The following slide is going to provide a little bit more detail on that. How many people are planning to apply for the musical grants program? 2. What about online? Do we have a lot of people online?
We have 3 hands.
Great. Fleishhacker, as I mentioned, we provide organizational support. We support nonprofit organizations and fiscally sponsored groups like Intermusic SF affiliates. But we don't accept proposals from individuals through our small arts grants program. And then the Zellerbach Family Foundation has its Zellerbach's Community Arts program. It has really broad eligibility, individuals, organizations, fiscally sponsored projects. It's very competitive, but it's also very accessible. And then even though their guidelines aren't out just yet, I didn't check today, but when I last checked, which was a couple of days ago, the guidelines weren't out. The Gerbode Foundation Special Awards in the Arts Program, sizable grants. And they rotate artistic disciplines. And this year they're doing music and sound design. And the deadline for that is July 30th. So keep an eye out on their website for that grant program.
I just want to add that it is collaborations between organizations and individual artists, and it's mostly for the creation of art, so commissions.
Great.
Do you have time for another couple of questions?
I do, yeah.
All right, we have what are strategies for finding grants that meet your specific needs?
Google search is one of them.
Mhm.
Another is you can go to organizations that you admire or your work is like, and a lot of times they will have their funders page and then look at who's funding them and see if you might fit for that grant program as well.
That's a great one.
There's other tools you can use online, but a lot of them are very expensive, so they're more for at the organizational level.
Okay.
Any questions?
Yeah, I see one that's asking, is there any grant that would accept music history education? That's just something that they'd have to research, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you're doing research, you want to put in your search criteria as many specifics as you can with regard to geography, with regard to the nature of your work, possibly the demographics of who you're trying to serve or who you're trying to reach out to. There could be, if you're working with a specific demographic, there could be grants programs that are specifically focused on that group that you're working on. There could be things specific to that geography, things that only fund in Oakland, for example, or only fund in San Francisco. So when you're doing your search, you want to put as many specific criteria as you know to see what comes back.
Okay. And this might be one of the tools that you were talking about that's a bit more expensive, but is there a database to research who, I guess, what foundations have funded before, or who foundations have funded before, and what amounts, especially private family foundations? It's like a specific one.
Yeah, there's what is that resource? Foundation Source,
There's Candid,
Candid.
and then there's. like,
Candid,
free
Foundation
one.
Source.
There is like a free one, I thought. Is it Foundation Source?
There's a free one now.
There is I've actually sent it to Gary, I feel like. I think there's a free database. They're all like pretty tricky to use. Prospecting is one of the most time consuming things. And this would be a prospecting. Do you align? Is there a possible partner out there?
You said you did said. All right, cool.
So just because there are many people who are going to be applying for the Inner Music SF's grant program, we want to quickly just look at the eligibility criteria, and then we're going to move into what the application asks for, because it asks for the same kinds of questions as a number of other funders, which we're going to get into in a minute. Crystal, do you want to say anything about the eligibility criteria here?
I think that the one thing I wanted to say was the residency requirement is for 50% or more of your project, your main collaborators and partners. So like your ensemble or ensemble plus a guest, if there's 51% more living in one of these 9 countries, then you are eligible. If there's a borderline case, please reach out to us. Like, they used to live here, they only play here, we do this here in the Bay and nowhere else. There are just like a lot of different situations that come up for folks, and I understand there's gray area. So if there is, reach out. Everything else is projects involve at least one small ensemble. One is we consider a small ensemble, so solo projects, like electronic musicians also qualify as a small ensemble. And I think that covers the most direct, yeah.
Great.
Yep. Oh, the activity period is 18 months.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
You should always look at what the funder defines as the grant period. We define the upcoming year. So we do 12 months, some do 18 months. And we do 12 months because it's general support. With a project support, it might be a longer time period because they know that artistic programs take time to organize, write, create, and bring to fruition. Whereas general support, it's what are you doing with it? What are your plans this year? John? Yeah. Dave?
If the
Can we get this up?
Thanks. If you have an activity period, all the performances have to happen within that activity period.
No, well,
For us,
yeah, for you.
for us, yes, the activities have to happen, the funded activities,
Yeah.
not all of them. So if you have a larger, sorry.
We need
So
it.
if you have a larger project and the musical grant program is covering a portion of that project, and those performances are, you go on to describe the other 2 performances that are happening, but you are looking to fund the first 2 performances of a 2-year project or something. Then those 2 that the musical grant program is going to fund need to be within that activity period. And it's very clear on the common application, what we're gonna go over. Exactly, there is a sentence where you have to say what this funding is going to support, and that needs to be where all of these things apply.
So, it is funder specific so there are funders that just support the development of new work and you don't actually have to, like, it's just the gestation of new work. There are groups that fund residencies where your job is to just think about and incubate the kinds of things that you're going to do. And then there are grant programs that want to see that you're going to bring your project to fruition and perform it, record, like whatever that means, perform it, record it. What else? End it in some way. If we think about the example that we looked at before, It would be a great project for the Fleishhacker Foundation during a period where they're writing it and performing it in the Bay Area, and it might be a great project for somebody else when they want to tour it, but not us. So thinking about the parameters around your, around the slice of your artistic programming that you want to do has to do with Funderland. Okay, so let's go into some, let's get into it now. So we've spoken a little bit about the shift in thinking, that you're not asking for a favor, you're proposing a partnership. So we're going to build on that framework. And I think that this might be one of the most important framing in this deck, which is funders give to groups and artists because of the needs that they meet, not the needs that they have. Let me read that again. Funders give to groups and artists because of the needs that they meet, not the needs that they have. The mistake is centering your proposal on your financial need, even though you have it. We all know that's why you're applying for funds. The shift is to center your proposal on the community needs and how your work is going to address those needs. So you're saying, here's a problem that we both care about. Here's how I'm going to solve it. Will you invest in this outcome with me? This isn't just a rhetorical flourish. It's like fundamentally changes the structure of the narrative. So let's read through this together, and Zoe is going to take us through. Okay, so if you want to do the first one, the mistake.
The East Side Percussion Collective needs 4,000 to keep our ensemble going. Our musicians volunteer their time, but rehearsal space and equipment costs are mounting. Without this grant, we may have to cancel our spring concert series. Please consider funding us.
So we have needs. Please do us a favor. Please help us out. Now let's see what the other one sounds like. So do you want to just go sentence by sentence, like read the first sentence and stop, read the second sentence and stop. So I'm gonna translate each sentence. Okay, first sentence.
East Oakland has almost no professional level contemporary percussion programming.
We've identified a need that we both care about. The funder cares about it and I care about it. Go on.
The East Side Percussion Collective fills that gap, presenting original works in local premieres in venues that are embedded in the communities we serve.
We are proposing to meet this need and we are well positioned to do so. Okay, last.
This grant will fund our spring 2026 series, 3 performances at Laney College featuring 2 Bay Area composers whose work has never been presented at this scale, John Smith and Doc Jones.
Okay, so here are our specific what, when, where, who, and why. We're going to come back to all that in a second. So do you see the difference? If you had a stack of 80 proposals to go through, which one stands out? Right? Okay. Questions, comments before we move on here? Essentially, I'm inviting you to think about what a funder is really doing when they're reviewing your proposal. They're asking, will this investment advance our mission and further our strategic priorities that we've defined for our grant program? And then there's another question that I think we need to begin to think about as well is this organization likely to succeed? Given that we have limited resources, is this a wise investment of our limited resources? This means you have to think about how you're presenting both the impact of your work and its likelihood for success. A proposal that says we may do a concert in fall 2026 if we find a venue is not as fundable as a proposal in which the venue has been secured and the artists have been identified. It's just think about when you're ready to submit. I have an idea for a project is not sufficient for funding. I don't know if that will come to fruition or not. I've secured a venue. I know I'm going to be working with these artists and we're going to be working in this community. Now we've got something that we can work with. Okay. Yeah, go.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question about like the examples of the community? Almost all the grants ask for what kind of community do you serve for, and I'm a little confused about how
Articulate that.
Yeah.
You can look at things like where you're going to perform, who you're going to be performing with. Sometimes community is important. Sometimes also the artistic development of the artist is important based on their communities, where they come from, who they are. And where they're going to be bringing their work. Is it an area that doesn't have access to this kind of music? Is it an area that, is it an educational program in which you can bring different kinds of music to people who have not learned about it yet?
Or find, and you can also talk about, the ticket price, or if it's free. And how accessible it is to public transit, and what kind of venue it is. Is it something that, well, you're trying to expand, access to? Those are also different types of things.
This is all great. There is a balancing act that you need to do between having enough revenue to do the program and giving it away for free. Yes, you want to make it affordable to underserved communities and things like this. At the same time, the first order of business is this thing's going to happen. And if I have to do two shows where people pay full price because I need to pay my musicians, I'm going to do that. Your funding is going to help us finish that out, but we'll also do something during the daytime in another community for free. The bottom line is we always have to be careful as funders is we're not forcing people into poverty by like, give it all away for free and we're not going to pay for the money you would have lost by giving it away for free. That's not fair.
Interesting.
It's keeping people, artists, not thriving, which is counter to what we're trying to do. Okay, so I have this slide. I'm not going to go into a great deal of detail about it, but I wanted to just bring to your attention that oftentimes funders will also post, in addition to their eligibility guidelines, they'll post their review criteria or their assessment criteria. You can often find this on the website along with their applications. These are the review rubric that the Fleishhacker Foundation uses when we're assessing a small arts grant proposal. And we posted there because we want to be transparent about what we're basing our decisions on. We should not be using, not all grant makers follow best practices, but they shouldn't be using secret criteria that they're not telling you about. Like we secretly care about this thing that we're not sharing with you. To really be effective grant makers, they should say, these are the things we care about. So you can tell us what you're doing and you can see if we're on the same page with this. Every now and then with my selection committee, I'll have to, not just with Fleishhacker, but over the period, over my career, I've been part of selection committees where they suddenly start saying, oh, what if we pick based on, said, nope, nope, nope. You can only use these things. Anything else you have in your head, stop it. These are the things, and these are the only things, because then it's not fair. And we want to be fair. The other thing that these help you to figure out is question 1, am I eligible? Question 2 is, am I going to be competitive for this grant? You might be eligible, but when you really look at it, you say, I really can't pay my musicians. I don't know, I just don't know if I'm going to be competitive for this. By the way, when we say that, is it a reasonable compensation based on the overall budget of the project? So we don't expect that a small ensemble is going to pay the same as the San Francisco Symphony. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much. So I was wondering how a startup organization can be a competitive applicant.
It's very hard, the chicken and egg problem, right? So track record matters. The more that you can have successful programs, the more that you can make successful presentations, the more that you get positive feedback about the work you're doing. You want to seize on that, capture it, and put it in. We're going to talk about organizational history here in a minute. One of the things that I always recommend is that you keep your organizational history up to date and refresh it at least once a year, more often than that. And this is debatable, but when you're doing your organizational history, we're going to go into this section and these specific sections in a minute. I think you should lead with your most impressive accomplishment, even if it's not chronological. So, we were named 2022 Best New Musical Ensemble by God. right? And so that would be your lead, and then since that time, we've
pretty
had
good.
many other accolades from
Yeah.
other entities.
There was a question, in the chat about union rates and using union rates as a. I believe this is asking about union rates as a guideline.
You know, it's difficult. Especially for a small arts grants program. We want to see, from our perspective, and you might have a different perspective we want to see that the organizers, the person who's organizing the event is doing their best to provide as much funds as possible to pay the artists in the expensive Bay Area where rent is high and venue rental is high and other expenses are high. We understand that compromises might need to happen. Union rates would be terrific. I don't necessarily hold applicants to that for our grant program though. Okay. Okay, so there's a reason why we looked at those 4 funders. Not only because they have upcoming deadlines and you might qualify, but also they are all participants in something called the Common Application for the Arts. The Common Application for the Arts is a standardized set of proposal questions that all the participating funders have agreed to use in their grant applications. They've done so to help make applying for multiple funders easier so that you can often develop quite a bit of template language that you can use again and again. And one of the things that you might consider is even if you don't know a specific funder that you're going to apply to yet, you can begin to develop some of your boilerplate language for the Common App. So you've got a lot less work to do once you're ready to go with your specific funder proposal. So need to clarify a few things about what the Common App is. It was launched in 2023 by Fleishhacker, Zellerbach, and Rainin Foundation. Since then, we've been joined by 3 other funders, including the wonderful Intermusic SF, and the other ones that you see here, Gabodi Foundation and Theater Bay Area. There's a couple of things to understand. The Common App is not a pooled grant program. Each of the funders still has their own eligibility criteria, goals, and strategies. But we're trying to do our best to make the questions the same so that to the degree possible, you can use boilerplate language. Not every funder uses every question. We only use probably about 50% of the questions available. And every funder will pick the questions that are relevant for their specific applications. And then a funder may ask 1 or 2 questions that are not on the Common App that are only specific to what they care about. For example, if a funder was only interested in funding in Oakland and you need to say, this is how it's going to make Oakland better, they could ask that question, but about 90% of the questions are supposed to be the same. Anything I'm missing from Common App, what it is?
I would ask, is anyone here unfamiliar with the Common App?
Oh, you guys know what it is? Hooray. Okay, cat's out of the bag. Great. Okay, so since we've got limited time, I'm just going to give a kind of general overview of the organizational information, and we're going to consider why funders ask it. And then we're going to spend our time really going into structuring project narratives for the rest of our time together. Section 1 is really administrative. It's just sort of who are you, where are you, how big are you, that kind of thing. But it might relate to eligibility. Sections 2 is really about your organization's identity, your mission, your history, your programs. This is like your organizational boilerplate. It should be succinct. It should be succinct. You read through 100 proposals and have somebody like just get to it. And it should be compelling, and then I said it updated annually with your accomplishments. For individuals, this is your artist statement and your artistic bio. Sections 3 and 4, the narrative of your proposal. What do you need money for? Funders are going to ask for a proposal for general support or for project support, but probably not both. It's very rare that a funder will say, are you applying for project support or general support? It's usually they fund for projects or they fund for general support. I think Oz used to do both, right?
I think so, yeah.
the Walter and Elise House Fund used to do both, but I think that they've discontinued that practice. And then, the financial information, as I say, I'm not gonna go into that because Suki did such a great job on her workshop 2 weeks ago. So, let's go back to section, well, no, I've got another slide here. As I've been saying all along, if you know the why, then you're gonna be able to provide the what. We've already discussed mission alignment, but describe your track record. When we get to the project narrative, the funder's gonna wanna know, have they done things like this before successfully? Is this the biggest thing they've ever done? And is there anything in their track record that leads us to believe that they've got the background to pull this thing on? Community is really a question about impact. Who's gonna benefit beyond yourself and your musicians? Well, it could be your musicians that benefit. It could be that this is an important part of their artistic development. But who benefits beyond the single entity, the community, the musicians, et cetera? And then describe the project, and we're gonna come back to this in a minute, but it's always what, who, when, where, and why. Stop for any questions. Yeah.
Well, for example, for the inter music and application, there is section for brief organization history and also a section to write a list or summary of current artistic programs and activities. And so I was thinking, like, for the history, I was supposed to write the history, like the organization, how it was founded and when, but was my understanding correct?
That's right.
Oh,
So you can start with, the organization was founded in 2019 by Ayoko, and it was founded to address blah 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 blah. For our first year, we performed here, and here, and we received this, and this feedback on the work that we did. We then moved to the next level, and today our programs exist in the following ways. We work in the schools. We have a sponsored series that we perform each fall, and just in general, these are the kinds of programs we have over the course of the year. Then you get to, here's what we're going to do with the money. Here's what we're going to do moving forward. So it's the track record. Here's how we were founded. Here's why we were founded. Here's the big stuff that we've done that means you should take us seriously. And here's what our next steps we'd like you to take with us. Few tips on developing boilerplate language. Mission is what motivates your work. Really keep that brief and specific. It's not a manifesto. This is not the time for your manifesto. It should be a couple sentences. Why are you doing what you're doing? Yeah.
It can be something different from what we have on your website. Or
You should post it on your website. Yeah.
it's quite similar, but ours is quite long.
Mm-hmm.
And
You
okay.
may want to workshop it and see if you can get it down to like, what's the main things that we're trying to accomplish here?
Thank you.
Your history and accomplishments, I've already talked about that. Start with your strongest, not necessarily chronological. That's debatable. Some people want to see the chron. Like if they ask like attach a artistic bio, that might be chronological. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think I think for CV, I think that's personal choice.
Yeah.
I think CV could be most substantial or chronological. Like most recent.
The only thing is you don't want people to miss, you just have to remember if board program officer is going through 100 applications, they don't want to miss that your big thing was in paragraph 4 of section 6 and like that's the thing to know about you. Put it up front. Yeah, Zoe.
So when providing the CV, it's just better to include the work that's related to the project I'm applying. Is that true? Or
It's your artistic work, yeah.
So
And
can
it
I,
might be-
can I grab that? I mean, I think, our or my understanding from a CV is basically something that is just upkept and you can hand it to anyone at any time.
Right.
Like it just is a total package of how would you put all of your artistic work into those buckets, whatever buckets you choose, and you could hand it to anyone.
Yeah.
You know, casting director, a funder, you know, accepting a CV is really supposed to be for convenience for the applicant, so that you don't have to develop something that fits into an application.
Exactly, exactly. And I've gotten a little off track here. We don't ask for a CV. And I don't know if many funders do, some do. But this would be a little block where it says, tell us about the history of your organization and your accomplishments. That isn't your CV, that's just what you want to highlight about yourself.
I can't even remember if it's or just optional additional.
Optional.
It's an optional additional.
Yeah.
Okay, so here we are. We're to the meat of it. And I know people are getting a little weary. You need a little stretch break for a second. How are we doing? We're okay. How are we on time?
We should keep going, yeah.
We should keep going.
36
We're
minutes.
running behind.
No, we're good.
Okay, here we go. So,
I think, unless everybody.
okay,
I spoke for everyone.
let's go into our 6 elements. And this really, what my hope is you can come back to this slide and the next one and just like paint by numbers, answer the questions one by one, and you're gonna construct a project narrative. So if you have these 6 elements, you're gonna be ahead of the game. You want to be succinct, but provide as much specific information as possible. The what. What specific activities are going to happen? Is it a concert series? Is it a recording? Is it a commission? Is it a premiere? Who is going to be involved? Who are the artists, collaborators, ensemble members, etc.? Where? What venues? Are they confirmed or projected? Obviously, confirmed is better than projected. If you've got one confirmed and you know you want to do something elsewhere, you can say, it's totally acceptable to say, our first concert is going to happen at Community Music Center in San Francisco. We intend to also perform this in West Oakland, and we're looking at venues in this neighborhood. It's better if they're all confirmed, but if you don't have it, you don't necessarily need to do it. Give a detailed timeline for the project's development and completion. We want to see that it's realistic. We're going to be rehearsing, we're going to be commissioning the program, commissioning the new music in April. The project development is going to happen over the next 4 months. We're going to do a work in progress showing in the fall with a planned premiere, and then feedback sessions. We're going to do a planned premiere in spring 2027. Wow. Okay. And why now? Now, this can be difficult to think about. So I'm going to give you a few questions to help you get there when you're thinking about the why now. This is the hardest part. Why now? No, it's because it's time. Why do you want to do this project? Like sit and free write. Why are you doing this project? Why? Why are you doing it with these artists? Are they from underrepresented groups? Is this a pivotal moment in their artistic development? Is there anything you can say about these artists that's like, why these artists, why now? Is it important for them to take the next step in what they're doing? Why are you doing it for these audiences? And then why at this moment in time does your work respond to things happening in the world? You don't need to go into what's happening in the world. Impact. This is where you shift from describing your work to describing what your work does for others or for the community. We're going to look at some examples in that in a minute. Is there any questions about this slide? Okay. So Abe, you're on now. We're going to give you the microphone if I can find it.
It's right there.
Sample A or sample B?
We're going to do both.
So just make sure it's on, click on.
Okay, so Here we go. You are a program officer at a foundation. At the end of the year, though, you're gonna have to create a report for your board about the outcomes of the grants that you recommended for funding. Your job performance is going to be based on the number of programs that you recommended were funding that actually came to pass and that had some kind of impact. In which of these proposals would you invest and why? Okay, Abe.
The Mission Bay Winds Quintet is applying for $3,500 to support 2 concerts in spring 2026. Our 5-member ensemble includes wind quintet repertoire ranging from classical standards to contemporary works. We were founded in 2019 and have performed at venues around the Bay Area. We are committed to accessibility and try to keep ticket prices affordable. Funding will cover venue rental, printing, and musician stipends. We believe that live chamber music is an important part of San Francisco's cultural life, and we hope that the musical grant program will help us continue our work.
Hey, well, not bad. There's a lot here. What works about this? Names the ensemble. Provides a timeline. What else?
They seek a clear mission.
Clear mission. What's missing from it? Where's
It's rather vague about what community is benefiting, I would say.
vague about the community is benefiting? It doesn't name a venue, does it? Who are the composers? Who are the musicians? We know the ensemble, we don't know the.
It doesn't talk about like the why now and not deeply about like the impact.
Not deeply about impact and not deeply about why now. Okay, great. Those are really good things to point out. Let's read sample B. Okay,
$3,500 is requested to support the Mission Bay Winds Quintet's mission of Oakland-based composer Fernanda Cruz to write a new quintet inspired by the oral histories of longtime Bayview Hunters Point residents. Cruz will work with the ensemble over 6 months, incorporating recorded community voices into the score. The world premiere will take place at the Bayview Opera House in October 2026, followed by a free community performance at a Hunters Point Recreation Center in November. Cruz's work centers the stories of communities displaced by redevelopment and artistic conversation rarely heard at this level in the neighborhoods that inspired it.
so what works about this?
Well, it's very strong about what community
Strong about the communities that it's gonna serve?
and more specific about composer involved
Specific about the composers involved?
and then
And the venue, we've got the venue, but notice the second one, he just says at a Hunters Point Recreation Center, it doesn't say the, so it's just, we're gonna find someplace in Hunters Point, we're gonna perform this, we don't know where. But that's the neighborhood we're gonna be looking in. So which one would, anybody else? Which one would you recommend you support, right? I mean, I didn't want to stack the deck pretty high, but I didn't stack it too high, because I get, this is my pretty much standard proposal is the one, is sample A. We get a lot of this. But you see how the and there's not much longer. It's just more specific. And in fact, it's the same project, just with more specificity. It's probably a little farther along in its development. The organizers have probably put in a little bit more work to nail down some specifics. But even if we know on the sample A that there's 2 composers, you must know, you have one of them? Give me something. Who is it? Yeah.
This is the whole narrative, so because I thought we had like write longer, like 400 words.
This is the biggest myth in all of grant writing. Longer is not better. Shorter is better.
Oh, so
Shorter is better. Because, well, yes, you can flesh it out with a lot of details and you can provide it over. These sentences here is the foot in the door. You lead with that. I'm not like, okay. I'm listening. You've got it worked out. Remember, the number of proposals they have to go through.
I would just add, like, the specifics, oh gosh. So the more specifics can be, offered at this time. I mean, if we're imagining a spring proposal or an October, did it say, yeah, October world premiere, October 2026 at the opera. So if this is gonna take place in 2026, we're already in March. Like,
I'm
you
not-
should have,
yeah.
like, this goes
Yeah.
along with is it likely to happen?
Right.
Because you're not even leading with a,
Yeah.
like, responsible timeline if
Yeah.
you don't have some of those things
Yeah.
nailed down.
Yeah, this can also be a matter of track record as well. So it could be that this group, I look at their track record and every year they perform at the Bayview Opera House. So that could be like an indicator that they have a relationship with that venue, that kind of thing. But don't rely on the person reviewing your proposal having a lot of time to piece those disparate things together, put it together for them.
So, go ahead.
Go ahead.
So there's a question in the chat. How would this translate to an individual artist applying for funding to create new work?
I think it's the same kind of guidelines about why do you want to create this work? What public benefit is it going to have? Where do you plan to perform it? How will it impact your own personal artistic development? And why does that matter?
Yeah, is there key collaborators with that? I'm
Sorry,
wondering
yes,
from,
yes.
you know.
If you think of yourself as an individual artist, you are almost certainly going to be working with other artists, producers, arts workers, etc. So it has an impact beyond yourself.
Is that
Okay. You can look at this slide later. This kind of just breaks down the difference between sample A and sample B, going from sort of vagueness to need-centered choices, and from, some things that need to be worked out to more clarity. The more precision you can provide, the more confidence a reviewer will have that the program is likely to occur. Here's another slide that you can come back to and use as a kind of prompt as you sort of think about putting together your draft. It summarizes everything that we've been discussing. I'm not going to go into it in any detail, but these are the questions. It's always what will happen, who is involved, where and when, who is going to benefit, why now, why you? You answer those questions, you're there.
There's a question here. Should the amount of money you are requesting be within the grant amount the foundation gives? So if you know that the cost for the performances is going to be 12,000, should you request 3,000 if that's the limit of the grant?
So each grant program, well, most grant programs will post what the maximum grant is within that program. You should also look at their past grant making history to see the range in grants that they've provided for organizations at your level. One of the things you have to be careful of is a foundation that supports the arts may provide a lot more money to larger organizations than they do to small musical ensembles. So you want to look at the other organizations that are in your range to sort of figure out how much to request. For me, I don't think a lot about how much people request, frankly, because I know that you need more than this grant can give you. So I'm assuming you're going to ask for the maximum amount allowable. And from my perspective, I don't care how much of it we pay for. Some funders do want to see that there's other funders involved, but for small musical ensembles, I'm not sure that's a huge consideration.
And then the other question was, do you give more weight to more than one performance of a new piece compared with just one performance of the new piece?
Yeah, this gets to impact. So it depends on where the performance is and how many people you plan to have there, and will it be a unique audience? And so thinking about the really what we're asking is this gonna have an impact? Is this gonna be something that we play in my living room for 4 of my friends? Or is this something that we're going to take out into the world and the community and that's gonna make some kind of positive, outcome? Okay, other questions?
My question is about the who benefits part. I was wondering if you can like an example, or if there's a place where I can search for an example, write or how to write about the.
I think that's really a personal answer of who do you want this to benefit? It's who do you, what kind of impact do you want this music to have and where do you want to bring it? I don't know if other people can answer that question.
Just an example.
Yeah, just, there's some examples in here, who benefits, it's like that one we said in the East Oakland, because it has no percussion, we're a percussion group, we're gonna take it there. You could look at if there's a dearth of the kinds of things that you provide in a specific neighborhood or a specific community and think about that.
You can keep it, just turn it off and then if y'all,
We're running out of time, and so I'll absolutely not move the budget as I'm gonna refer again to the workshop last week. But you can come back to this, as it was a pretty pithy way of thinking about budgets. Here are the upcoming deadlines that you need to be aware of. The first is, of course, the musical grant program on March 20th, right around the corner. Zellerbach accepts proposals quarterly. Fleishhacker is July 15th. And then Grabodi, we don't know. Yes, we do know, which July 30th is the deadline. Sorry, I should have put that on here. We're going to move into peer review for those of you who'd like to stick around for that. Or we can do that in here and online as well if there are people who want to do that. But here's just a few sort of closing things to think about. Remember, funders give because of the needs you meet, not the needs you have. You want to frame your proposal accordingly. The grant is a joint venture. You want to show that your project is viable. The Common App is a good investment of your time because if you do your template language for one, you'll be able to reuse it 6 times with some modifications depending on what the funder wants. Specificity wins. Named artists, venues, timelines, and communities upfront is better than vague language. And then you're going to review the criteria before you begin to write. Do not send a proposal if you're just outside the guidelines. Okay. Final thoughts, and then for those of you who would like to do peer review, I'll have a few guidelines for that and we can get into it.
Quick question.
Yeah.
If
turn that puppy on too, please.
You're given, if the grant period is like, say, 18 months, and your project is gonna be done in like 6 months, is that okay?
Yeah, fine.
Can you just real quickly go back to the deadline slide? Hold on, you're good.
Any other questions? Okay, how do we want to do this logistically? Do we want to just have people who want to do peer review stick around? And for those who don't, you can enjoy your refreshments out here. What do you think we should do logistically?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, that
Okay.
makes sense.
Great, so peer review peeps, stick with me and we'll work together. And if you did bring anything, thank you very much for coming.
Go get writing.
What time are you ending the whole thing?
We're supposed to end at 8:30, so it might go a little bit longer than that, but
Thank you, Ann.
continue. Okay, so, are there people online or do you just go from my down there?
We're checking.
We're checking in.
Yeah,
Okay,
That's a great day.
I think you're okay for now. I'll let you know if there's any specific questions for you.
okay, do you guys want to just partner up? Maybe, you're gonna go there,
Uh-oh.
and the two, you have something peer review today? No? Okay, then we'll just do, then how about
I
you?
don't.
Okay.
I need to just watch.
Great. So it'll be the two of you just sort of talking, if you want to exchange what you've brought, or you could even talk it through if you don't have it printed out. And the thing the other person's listening for what's working, what's missing, like what's there, what do you think is still missing? And then you're gonna, instead of saying, I like it, we don't like it, or don't like it, that doesn't matter. You're just missing, not missing. And it's better to make questions rather than statements. The goal is to help each other get more specific, not to necessarily evaluate the quality of what it is that your person's proposing. Okay, so I'll give you about 10 minutes to do that, and then we will come back. How did it go? Was that helpful? Were you able to look upon the work that you've been doing with some greater level of specificity? Give me some feedback. How did this feel for you to review your project through this one?
I appreciated the feedback.
Hang on.
Oh,
I've applied to 19 different grants, but I haven't been successful yet. And the feedback I received first was that she told me that it's good, but at the same time, I really understand that by listening to your presentation, I learned that I need to make it shorter and more simplified.
So I heard a little bit of this going on, and so I want to look at the different, remember this was the example that we used of where you were the program officer and you had to pick one, and everybody picked sample B. It's not really longer.
mhm.
It's just every word matters for specificity, and it's condensed.
Mhm.
Also, it gets to the what. Gets to the what right off the bat. One of the things, and actually, I've been speaking about this with some of my colleagues, there's a wave lately where people start with the why before they even tell you the what, and that just simply
I got it.
doesn't. It's somebody's.
I got it.
Okay. They start with the why before they tell you the what. And so it starts with this, very long discussion about the problems in the world and how they are multifaceted and how, and like we're on paragraph 3, and I don't know if you're gonna sing or dance or have a play. I don't know what you're proposing. So right up front, what are you gonna do? Anyone online? How did the breakout rooms go?
We're getting some nods.
I super appreciated the feedback I got, just in terms of being a little bit more specific on some of the things that I thought I was specific about, but I wasn't. So that was very helpful.
Right. And I think it's always good, this practice that we've done where you hand your proposal to somebody else who isn't aware of the project at all. And then if they don't understand right off the bat, you can guarantee the reviewer isn't gonna understand it either. Just somebody who isn't aware of your work, doesn't know your proposal, say, can you read this? And then say, what do you think I'm gonna do? And if the person goes, you're not there. Okay. Any other closing thoughts?
We have a comment.
Yeah.
I was one of the people who gave Gary some feedback, and it was actually because of the fact that I've seen him perform multiple times in the venue that is the focus for his grant that it actually helped. I was able to think about, is the increased funding about enlarging one group or having multiple groups? And so I was, I guess, kind of like a continuity person in a film. Like, okay, there's the vision and the goal, and how would it express itself out there in that park in the way that he wants to?
That's great. You alluded to something else that I think is also another really interesting strategy that I would recommend is also share your proposal with someone who knows and loves your work. Sometimes you don't know what's important about your own work. You don't have that perspective on it, but somebody who's a fan can come in and say, you know what you're missing here is you're really great at X, Y, and Z, and I don't see that.
Yeah.
they can really provide that insight for you as well.
That reminds me of like, giving your like resume or cover letter to a, to a friend. And they're like, what, you're selling yourself short
You're selling
here,
yourself Right. I do think, well, this is a matter of taste. I'm gonna say it anyway. Be careful of overly ambitious like I just need to know what it is, where it is. A lot of times I get these, we're going to play the wonderful, marvelous, terrific, stupendous, and it's just like, just tell me where and when and why and how people have responded to it in the past. And sometimes those adjectives begin to sound a little like they're covering something up in some way. That might be a personal taste. I don't know how you feel.
I think that it really speaks to the technical nature of grant proposals and why it can be so tricky to write these things. It's not everyday language that we use, and there is a kind of dryness about it. And it's like, well, how am I but I think more what I was saying, like, you're selling yourself short is like, how is this really functioning? And I've seen your work before and it doesn't really function the way that you're talking about.
Right.
And you're missing this key piece.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree that I think that there is a technical nature which can be a challenge for people who aren't, used to kind of writing in that way.
Any other thoughts about the peer review? Okay. Thanks, everybody. I just sent the PDF of tonight's presentation deck to Mark, and he's going to post it online. So it'll be available for you to follow up later. And I really encourage you to go back to some of those slides about the who, when, where, what, why, because they ask some really, I think, provocative questions that can help you to flesh out your project proposal. I wish you every single success in your efforts to secure support for your work. And I just want you to know how much respect that I have for it. It's not an easy thing to do. One of the hardest things about being a funder is that there are two different skill sets. One is being an incredible, terrific musician and artist, and the other one is writing grant proposals. My job is to find the people who are terrific proposals. You can be careful of just funding the best worded grant proposals. That's not my job. My job is to find the best art. And so to the degree that you can frame your art with clarity and precision, the better off you'll be.
Yep.
I like that. Find the best art. That's great.
Okay.
I'm writing it down. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
Be well.